It's just so good evening, everyone. Today, I am very, very honored to be interviewing my second female in the Petanque Coach Interviews. And this is a young lady that I have known for a number of years. I think we're getting up to probably 40-something years. And look, today on the couch at her home, we welcome the wonderful Claire White. Welcome, Claire.
Thanks for having me, Kev. Nice to be here.
It's great to see you again. And look, you were a formidable opponent back in the day, us old boys and girls that still talk about the game. And you did incredibly well and did incredibly well for many, many years. And I know recently you've stopped playing for a variety of different reasons, and maybe we'll get into those later. But let's start with where I start with everyone. Where did it all begin for you?
I guess it was just on holiday with the family, south of France, on the campsite. You see everybody playing. You never went down the route of playing with the coloured plastic ball. My dad, for some reason, ordered wooden ball. So that's how we started playing with wooden ball. And then obviously we came back to England and just thought nobody ever played. So that was it. And then one day, Mum and Dad saw an article in the local Telegraph, the new newspaper, saying that the council had put down 2 pétanque terrains in the local park. So they were kind of quite interested, went along. Then they entered a competition, which was a regional thing, and then it became a national thing with the, I think the finals were in Kent, and they did well enough to qualify. So they dragged Nikki and I along, towing the caravan. We stayed in this field, camped. There was another couple, I think, because it was a pairs competition. So it was a father and son from the southern region. They were there as well. So they were kind of talking to us. And they said, oh, there's terrain called the Hot Pocket. There's a competition going on. Do you want to go and have a look? This was before the main competition. So we went along, and Norfolk Square were there in the final. I remember seeing Bridie, thinking she was so cool in a leather jacket. I think Michelle was there, Richard Alvey, Doug, Sylvain, Patrick, Jean-Marc, they were all there. And it was just brilliant. The atmosphere was great. Anyway, obviously they won. After the competition, the guy that was staying in the field camping, his name's Nick Hillier. He was playing with his dad, Peter Hillier, Botley Butchers they were. And he said to me, have you ever played? I said, not really, just on holiday. Do you fancy a game? So I said, okay. Anyway, I just thought, actually, this is quite a good game. It's quite tactical, competitive. He'd been playing about 2.5, 3 years at the time. Anyway, I won. I beat him 13-12. So ever since then, I've been hooked. So that was it.
When was that? That must have been early 80s?
1980.
1980.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was the start of it. And then obviously the following year, because that was towards the end of the season, we played in some of the Grand Prix. One of them was at the Haycock in Nîmes, and played with Nikki and my dad because we didn't know anybody else. And we found ourselves in the final and we won the whole thing.
Wow.
We won the whole Grand Prix, I think I was 14. And we got to go to the North Sea in Holland. So then we became friends with Norfolk Square and obviously people abroad. And that was it. As soon as I've been abroad, you just want more. The level's a lot better, the standards higher. So that was it. Literally, couldn't wait to play the next competition. And we swapped shirts. I think I swapped with someone called Edwin from Belgium because there weren't that many people our age there, but the ones that were there were really kind of giving us some advice. And I suppose because Nikki and I were girls, it was a bit of a novelty as well. So, yeah, that's it. That's my story.
That's amazing. A North Sea at the age of 14. I was just playing and you were probably representing Great Britain at that time. It's
crazy, isn't it?
Isn't it? It's just... Yeah. So that, I started playing in 84, my first competition in 85. So yeah, it's
Mhm.
it's
And I
uh,
think ever since then, we became friendly with Norfolk Square, and
mm,
I guess we were educated by them. So that's why you sometimes see me, if there isn't a tape measure around, I'll measure with my feet and my ball and my fingers, which is what they do in France. So
exactly.
yeah,
And you wouldn't, or there'd be murders if you did that today.
but like because I belong to Whitnash now, I joined about 3 or 4 months ago.
Right.
Sometimes they're like, "What's she doing?
I
Let's
know.
get a tape measure." We can't do that.
Yeah.
Or if you make a circle and then you don't have the ring, it's like, well, I think we should get the circle. So, but obviously we're used to just making our own and playing on an open terrain.
Exactly. Yeah. And literally the time when you'd say nothing is dead
Exactly,
and
because
you
there
play
were
on park
maybe
benches and
yeah, there were rings
staircases,
and
up
springs.
trees.
Exactly, over a tree stump,
Yeah.
round. Yeah,
It
that's what
it
it
really made
wasn't.
the game good.
It did, and there wasn't a lot of gravel either because I remember playing on disused tennis courts, so red grass and stuff like that. Which, yeah, people might think that's quite easy. No, it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
Or, kind of bare pieces of tarmac, so you've got to think about the slopes on it and everything. So, but yeah, big stones are not a thing. You don't really see them, do you, in France? Not
No,
really.
not really. I remember the first time I saw you was at Coptal
Oh, yes.
on Prees and Pancake Flat. It was the pitch they used for soccer and all sorts of things. And I remember just thinking, damn, this girl's good. And Nikki, your sister, was playing with Nick Baxter as well. And I was like, and then your dad, and then your mum, Diane. And I was like, oh my God, this is a whole family of just brilliant players because it was one of my first Grand Prix, but you were so much better. And I remember we got through to, I think it was a quarter final, and we went just back thinking we were bull gods, which obviously we weren't. So
These days.
early motivation for you, obviously, you started off winning and you got the bug. Was it
Mm.
just the motivation of winning? Was it what inspired you? I mean, Norfolk Square obviously is an incredible team to get associated with early on.
Mm. Didn't necessarily play in competitions with Norfolk Square, but they became friends. So obviously we used to go to London and have little friendlies and get a few tips. But just being amongst them, I think, helped as well. So yeah, just kind of finding our feet with um, what we preferred to do in the game. Because obviously I love to shoot, so that was the first thing I did, really. Which it's a bit of a I don't know. It's a bit of a glory thing, isn't it? Not that I'm that sort of person, but I think it makes people notice you. If all of a sudden you step into a circle and you hit a ball at 10 meters and it looks effortless, people are going to take notice. Um, and I guess the more you play, the better you do in a competition, the more you want to do well and then keep on improving. So that was what it was really. And I suppose more success in this country means more success abroad, which ultimately is what you want to do. That's the only way to improve, in my opinion.
You
Yeah.
don't get a huge amount if you hang around with the same people all of the time and play against the same people all of the time. You have to stretch your comfort zone, which you were lucky to do at such a young age, going to a North Sea. Be unheard of now for a 14-year-old to be in a senior team going to a Europeans.
Yeah.
And
Because I mean, obviously I stopped playing for 20 years, but I think when I'd stopped, they had a ladies team. They had a junior team as part of the 6 or 8. I think it was 8 when we went.
mm,
But yeah, it was a different game back then.
mm,
Everybody was equal. Doesn't matter if you're male, female, young, old. That's it. Everyone's in the same pot, competing against each other, which probably increased the level and the standard that I reached, Nikki and the rest of the family, mum and dad as well, back in
yeah,
the day.
yeah. I remember the drive and the determination and the very quiet. You know, you have a very measured demeanor, and it was always, no matter how much pressure was on the game, your dad was always unflappable. You were always very measured. And is that just a family trait? Is it, or is it something you've developed?
Probably something I've developed. I think I've got good inner strength and a bit of a poker face, because I've always thought you should be looking over at me or the team and not know whether I'm 12-0 up or 12-0 down. And a lot of the time I have been 12-0 down and I've gone on to win. So it's just the mindset, I think, and the determination to never give up.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it takes a while to sort of get into a game, depending on your teammates, because obviously sometimes you think a couple of ends to get to know each other if it's a new team, or if you're playing on the terrain perhaps you haven't played on before, and the lie of the land, etc. But yeah, that's what it is. I think it's just inner strength and then focus, determination, will to win.
It's interesting because I mentioned it when I was in filming in Kerlawa with some of the best players. They just had that poker face. Didn't matter what situation, whether they'd missed hit, didn't matter. It's a great attribute to have. And the shooting, your preferred position, where did that come from at a young age?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's my preferred position now. I prefer to play in the middle. I don't know, really. I guess it almost seemed like that was the more difficult thing to do, because it seemed like if you can point a ball, there's the jack, and then you just get. But actually, that was more of a discipline. So I used to practice a lot. Dad built a terrain in the garden, and I would be out there all the time trying to perfect this, the shooting technique. I also was lucky enough to go to France quite a lot, and I studied a lot of the French players in action and took lots of photos of them. And Didier Choupé was the person that I just thought, I want to be like him. So I looked at his vertical arm behind him, and that's what I used to shoot like. I don't know if you remember.
I certainly do.
Yeah. Obviously, the further back your arm goes, the easier it is to reach the longer distances. And I've got quite long levers, should we call them? Anyway, so that was what it was, just practice, determination, and emulating the great players that I'd seen.
Well, Didier was a force for decades and still is. I saw him recently playing. He's still got his, not quite as much of a backswing, but some of the younger players that I've witnessed, and his demeanor, his determination is very much there still. So yeah, and I couldn't think of anyone better to emulate than the great Choupé.
It's great, isn't it?
So I'm guessing he would be in your dream team, shall we say?
Yeah, possibly, and Christian Fazino as well, because he became a friend. Yeah, obviously he was another one that I used to watch. I was just like a groupie. I'd take photos of all these players, and they're probably thinking, "Who is she?" Everywhere he was, I was. And then luckily, when Nikki and I played in the World Championships, we got to play in the World Games, and he was there. And then he'd remembered me like from 3 years previous when I'd seen him. In fact, he'd got a video from a dad from the French Championships that he gave us, and we had a friendly, and he was just so nice. And it's just that really that makes you think this is such a great game. Don't necessarily have to speak the same language, but when you've got a shared passion, that's all that matters. So yes, so possibly Fazino, Rocher in recent times as well, especially when he's been over to England. He's got time for everybody, the youngsters especially. So I just love that. So yeah.
Yeah, he's very, very good, and he's very aware of his presence and his position in the game. And I think maybe some of the top French players, one or two only, are a little bit aloof, but in general, they're all wonderful people to, or they give that they give that allure that they're very encouraging and open. But Yeah,
I think it's because they're ambassadors of the game, and if I can be that to anybody, that's great as well.
So you mentioned World Championships and North Sea, and I know you've been to multiple Worlds and multiple North Seas, and you've been to Europeans and you've been to World Games. I mean, and you medaled in them as well. So is there anything you haven't done?
Been a coach as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there were lots of competitions that haven't won, but obviously all of those international competitions, that's the highlight, basically. That's what you aim to do. You aim to play for your country. And most of those were when England was obviously in the BPA. So it was Great Britain rather than England.
Yes.
So it was even more difficult to get yourself into, the national team. So,
and the association paid for the trips, unlike now where do they give a contribution now? I'm not entirely sure, or not at all.
I think so, but I think it's more something like £250 if it's Europe, 500 we have to pay as players if it's outside Europe. But yeah, back in the day, the BPA paid for everything. So they told you to be at Heathrow Airport at a certain time. So you'd be there in your BPA blazer, all smart, get when you're there. Honestly, it was just completely different.
Yeah, I remember my first North Sea and the pride of going and being amongst great players and knowing you had to deliver, and there was no hiding place. It was remarkable. And going to other tournaments like Liège and various others, it was great. I think a lot of players miss out on that these days. Not quite sure why. Obviously, the membership was much bigger then, back in
Yes.
the day. And what other changes have you seen in the game? Because I think, as you mentioned, you stepped away 20 or so years, probably a longer sulk than my 10-year sulk, which was pretty good. but was that due to family, or what was the reason? Did you just fall out of love with the game? What was it?
No, so I started in 1980 and then kind of finished in 1990. So I had 10 years really. And then I went travelling and met somebody, became my husband, had a family. And then kind of the marriage kind of broke up a bit. So that's what made me start again. So I never really lost the passion, but it was just obviously priorities changed. So, and it's funny because when you start playing again, you realise how much it's still in there, the passion. So, but I remember Mum and Dad said, "Why don't you come along? You don't have to play." And it was a competition in Hereford that Hervé and Jérôme had organised. So anyway, I arrived on the Friday afternoon. There's a few people milling around. All the flags were there, the bunting. It was a great atmosphere to start with. And my dad said, "Oh, would you like to know who the teams are?" Because I think it was a doubles and then a singles or something. And I said, "But how do you know who the teams are? Because normally I was used to going to a competition, you register, and then whoever's turned up will play." But he'd got a printout of who the teams were and who the players were. And that was just a revelation because obviously that never happened before. And then obviously there were circles and there was shaking hands before the game. Like we never used to do that. It was literally just after the game, well played, whatever. So quite a few changes, yeah. But I think probably the social side was a lot better years ago. I don't know if you'd agree. Maybe it's because the level, there were more people kind of on the same level as myself. So then you became friendly, and then you used to see them all on the circuit, and everybody used to stay if it was on the Isle of Wight or wherever. But yeah, I suppose as well, sponsorship.
Yeah.
It was a bit more appealing to go to these competitions because if there's something to win, it was worth doing. Although saying that, when you win a bottle of wine when you're 14, 15, what can you do with that? Try and sell it to your parents. And
I did plenty of that. Yeah. I remember winning a big case of Pernod. Like, what am I going to do with this? Oh, I don't even like spirits. But the games were different, and then as discussed with other people from, Nessie and back in the day, even with your dad, they were held in big stately homes and great big venues and 180 teams sometimes, and towerlands with 200 teams going on till 3 in the morning. And people in the UK will never experience anything like that, I don't think, unless the game changes radically.
no, the
It's
only thing that they can experience today is, I don't know if you ever played at Shurston,
no,
Wiltshire.
no.
It's usually around about Bastille Day. They have a competition. It's a triples competition, and as soon as the entries go out, they're full. I think they're limited to 128 teams or something ridiculous. And I've only played in it once, but I remember when Mum and Dad went the first time, they said everyone's parking in the field and they're all there with the ball bags and there's a buzz and the atmosphere's building, um, live music playing and food stalls, and just the whole atmosphere is absolutely great, especially if it's a nice day. So that many people descending on one place for a competition, that was what it was like. It's a little bit of a taste of what it was like before. So
I
yeah.
think it's very similar in the Coates doubles in Cambridgeshire. Every year sells out 102 teams, 104 teams, whatever it is. Great atmosphere, live music, good food. The whole village is involved, playing on driveways. Yeah,
Mm,
it's a small flavor of what is a normal Saturday in France and a normal Sunday. It's
exactly. That's what I was just about to say. I think some people forget that it is a game to be enjoyed. You can have fun. It's not serious all the time. So all these little extras just make for a better atmosphere. Do you think?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I rocked up to 3 competitions the other weekend. Played at 1 in the morning, got knocked out. Very good competition. Went and played and won some sausages in the afternoon. Went to play the next day and won a chicken. It's like, what am I going to do with these? I can't go back on the boat with sausages and chicken. But it was good. Very low entry fee. The little pression glasses of beer and wine. Nobody ripping anyone off. Great atmosphere. Everyone eating and drinking. And it's that conviviality that you get in France that I think only really seems to happen in the interregionals. And I think
Yeah, true.
you sent me a photo of us at the interregionals.
It was
You said,
years ago.
God, we were so young. And I was like, oh, yeah, you look young. I didn't.
About chickens and sausages, it just reminded me of something. When we used to go to the campsite in France, it was Serignan Plage near Béziers, and there were about 4 or 5 campsites all next to each other, competitions every day on each one. And we were really friendly with Simon Bird, and he came to visit. So there was a doubles on one of these competitions on the campsite. Dad and Simon played. They found themselves in the final. I mean, there were some really good players that used to go. It wasn't just people that were there camping, it was locals. Anyway, they won the competition, and they won a mouton. They won a lamb. I mean, what they're going to do without bringing that back, honestly. But it's just the prestige of winning it. It
Yeah.
was great. It was really great.
You
And
wouldn't have
then
much luck on the boat with the foot and mouth at the moment.
the buzz that you get, especially on the campsites, and people know, oh, once they've seen the English play and played against us, that's a different story, isn't it? First of all, they're thinking, oh, easy game now. Not so easy.
I actually think it's a huge advantage. And I've seen this many times in my experience in France, but also chatting to others. Steve Dakin and I talk about it a lot because we play for the same club in Cherbourg. We come up against these teams and they go, oh, here we go. It's the English, it's the Irish. Yeah, we're going to thrash this. But then a different pressure gets on their shoulders because suddenly they start losing a few points. And then it's, damn, we could lose to the English. Suddenly it is an increased pressure on them, whereas there isn't on us. So it's
Mm.
quite interesting, different dynamic depending. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, the thing is, you know you're the underdog, but they don't. So yeah, it's the overconfidence that, yeah, it can only go one way, and that's down for them and up for you. So
and you can take a few cheeky scalps as well,
yeah,
especially when they assume you don't speak any French, when actually we do speak fairly reasonable French.
brilliant, brilliant.
So you've played in some magnificent games and won some incredible awards and accolades, and like as I said, medaling in the world games and medaling in the world championships. I mean, is there any particular moment or any particular game that sticks in mind as you could recall it just like that, as if it was 2 minutes ago?
Um, Yes, when we played in the first ever ladies World Championships, which was a bit of a novelty, because nobody knew, it was an unknown quantity, what it was going to be like. Everybody presumed that France were going to win. They didn't even make it out of the leagues. So I know. It was yeah, I think obviously it was in Palma, Mallorca. So as the host country, Spain had two teams in the competition. One of the players, Maria, her husband had taken 6 months off work to train her to win the World Championships.
Wow.
Anyway, we actually beat them in the quarterfinals. I think it was 13-12, and we finished at about quarter to midnight. But before that, part of that game, you've got the crowd, sort of slow hand clapping, and then it's getting faster and trying to be intimidating and everything. But Nikki and I were not put off, and yeah, we went to win 13-12, so earned ourselves a place in the semi-final, and it was against, I think, it was Maria. So yeah, that just shows the dedication that she put in, wanting to win so much. So it felt really good that we'd beaten them. But there was some kind of public terrains nearby the hotel where we were staying, and I just remember, obviously, lots of the husbands or the dads or the boyfriends were there because it was their wives or daughters that were playing. And, I remember seeing Rania Quadri. She was one of the players from France that was there. And she said, "Did you want a friendly?" And then we were just chatting. And she said to me, "I play in France, and sometimes someone will say to me, 'If you hit that ball, I'll give you a microwave.' Or if you win that point, I'll give you the." Do you know what I mean? It is completely different. So that was good. But Monaco were there. So there was a mother and daughter playing, I think, and it was the father and the wife. So it was Clapier and Olivier, the men, and they were world champions, and they were there, and they challenged Nikki and I to a friendly, and we just thought, wow, this is fantastic. I think we must have had a couple of games. I think Dad had flown over, and he was watching as well, and it was just brilliant. I just remember that game. I think we might have won one of the games, and then they won the other one. But yeah, it was just brilliant. But after the Ladies World Championships, we stayed on for a Spanish club competition, a triples, which was at one of the local clubs, but it was absolutely pouring down with rain. So they said, "What are we going to do?" So let's go back to the stadium where they'd held the World Championships. And I just remember there was a shot where the cosh had moved, and it was about 13 metres, and I needed to shoot to save the end or something. Carré sur place. That was one shot that really springs to mind. So
Brilliant.
it was great. It was great.
So you mentioned about the pressure with the slow hand crap and the crowd trying to get into your head and the intimidation and the first ladies worlds and the expectation, and how, explain to me, mere mortal that I am, how you dealt with that and you have this inner belief and strength to cope with it.
I guess it's because I was playing with Nikki because it was a doubles. It was doubles in those days, and my mum was the reserve. But she obviously was just the top supporter. She didn't play. So familiarity, obviously, I'd only ever really known playing with Nikki in the doubles. I'd never really played with any other female. So we were comfortable with each other. and our games anyway. And you know what it's like when you're playing with somebody. There's not a lot of talking because you just know what to do. So Nikki's the same as me. You know, you look at her and you're like poker face. In fact, when we were younger, I think we were playing in a competition in Leicestershire, and this lady said to us, "Don't smile, your faces might crack." And we were like, "We're focused. We're not normally like." We were just concentrating so much, and that's what it was. So if you've got that focus, it doesn't matter what environment you're in. You just have to blot everything out and just focus on what you're doing at the time. So, yeah.
So, what advice would you give to someone for doing exactly that, blocking everything out? Because I see many players and they go, "Oh no, he's moving over there," or "She coughed," or "Oh no, someone beat their horn. I can't possibly play," and that's not good.
No, when you're in the zone, that's absolutely fine. But if you're just about to throw and you see a movement or hear something, I would always stop and step out, because you know that it's not going to go well if you just carry on and think that's fine. So it's just a matter of getting into the zone, breathe. I mean, it seems obvious, but just take a breath, just relax your whole body, and then just focus on what you're going to do. Somebody could just be screaming in your ear, but if your mind's not on that, you're not going to take any notice of it. So it's just a sharp focus on what you're doing at that time.
The task at hand. That's all that matters is the shot.
Yeah,
Tunnel
yeah.
vision.
Not much chat either. You know, sometimes these teams are, chatting away, which is very off-putting anyway. But yeah, really, chat should be left after the game. If you are chatting, it should just be about what you're going to do as a team. So, yeah, just focus, get in the zone.
Exactly. And chatting quietly between each other.
Quietly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's almost like, I don't know, a sixth sense. You just know, just a look between you. If you've been playing together for so long, that's all that's needed. So, but equally, yeah, if it wasn't me in the circle and there's something going on, I would step in the way of the circle and the head, just to stop everything and just make sure that person was composed and resets, focuses, gets back in the circle when it's all over and ready. Yeah, very
Brilliant.
aware of what's going on.
So you've had a lot of success with your sister, with your dad, with your mum, and but in more recent years, you've played with other players and still done incredibly well. So, but I believe you've stepped back now, and you're more of a fun player now. Would that be right in my estimation?
Yeah, I think I just enjoy the game a bit more sociably. I do quite like to play in the odd competition, but yeah, I've sort of taken a step back from playing nationally or internationally. It's just the politics in the game. To be honest, it was kind of like that years ago to a certain extent, but I just think it's just best I think people forget, like I said earlier, the fun element. You know, it's it's a game played amongst friends. If you're more relaxed, if you're comfortable, you can play better and you can enjoy it more. So don't put the pressure on yourselves. Just, you know, play more. And like you said in one of your videos, you know, play as if you're practicing, or if you're playing in the
Yeah.
club or in your garden. And I think that's
Make you
what's
practice your
important.
play. Yeah.
Exactly. And also, I like to help other people as well. So if I'm playing with somebody, whether it's on the club night or I played a year with pétanque events, you play with people that wouldn't necessarily get a chance to play, with me. Then if I can help them improve their game or give them confidence to be better, I like to do that.
That's good. And what I mean, who do you coach, or is it just anybody, or and are people coming to you? Is it just
Well, anybody. I mean, when I played for the pétanque events, it was whichever ladies team I was in. If I was in a doubles, triples, or a team of four, I would encourage all of them. And then some of the juniors, the fantastic juniors we've got at Whitnash. Um, we have like a random melee game first of all on a Monday at the club, and then afterwards you can stay and play amongst yourselves. So if there are any juniors there, we'll get them involved and play with or against them. It's great, honestly. They absolutely love it. They're so dedicated, and the success they've had this weekend is amazing. I know, all hard work to everybody in the club. It's great.
It, it's great when you see work that's been put in and then you get results after. I saw it,
Mm.
I'm not in person, but I saw Kent doing exactly that this year, winning the interregionals this weekend. And they put a lot of dedication, a lot of work, a lot of effort, and the rewards have come off for them. So,
Yeah.
well done to them. So,
Yeah.
so what advice would you give to a brand new lady joining the sport? Let's say a similar age to you, maybe 35, and just in terms of how how would they take up the game? What drills or techniques or things should they? Because there's sometimes a reticence to shoot. It's like, oh, you're a lady, you just point in certain clubs I've seen, and I don't
Mm.
agree with it, but it is
I
it
think
is.
it depends on what their ambitions are in the game. Do they just want to be club players, or do they want to play local competitions, or do they want to improve? Because, I mean, not that it should matter about their ability, because obviously you need to be at a certain level if you're going to play nationally. But there are some players in the club, bless them, that they're there every week, and they often ask me for some tips on if even if I would actually play with them. And I said, of course I'll play with you. Of course I will. You know what I mean? Because sometimes when you're playing with somebody, then you can help them and talk them through things during the game rather than just give them advice and let them go off and do their own thing. So I think what I try and do is make people believe in themselves. That's so important. Don't think that you can't shoot. Why do you think that? Okay. Can you swing your arm? Yeah. Can you let go? Just kind of swing it a bit more and release it a bit later. So, and then we do all these exercises with juniors, lob a ball into a tyre or over a bar. I mean, there's no reason why perhaps one of the ladies that's a new one can't do that either. So I think there's something for everyone there, but just keep persevering, don't give up, and don't be afraid to ask people that are more experienced for advice because everyone's willing to give it.
I was coaching a player in recent years, and one of the bits of advice that I said was when you turn up for fun tournaments or Tuesday night league matches or whatever, just go up to whoever you're playing with and say, I'm shooting today. And they'll go, what? What? You just say, yeah, I'm shooting today. That's all right with you, isn't it? Because we're not really playing for anything. You guys can point really well. Shouldn't be a problem. And often the team will go, yeah, okay.
Yes, it's actually because they're out of their comfort zone, and that's what you need to do. Put people out of their comfort zones. Get them to work on things that they're not kind of familiar with or comfortable with. Otherwise, they're just going to be sticking to the same thing that they know, and they won't improve. So, but
Whether
yeah, I
it's
know.
changing shots, whether you don't like lobbing. I remember one year I really was unhappy with my lob, and I said for the rest of this year, all I'm going to do is lob. Whether I win, lose, or draw doesn't you don't draw, but I get humiliated, and I just did that for a year. And in the beginning, it wasn't pretty, and towards the end, it was working well. So,
Same for me. I practiced over a tree. There's a branch of a tree, and I thought that's about right. Right. And first of all, it's like you don't really you get the height but not the distance, and then it's just kind of keep on persevering to get that. Yeah. So yeah, that's what it is. Practice.
flicking on the muscle memory, getting more comfortable with the shot, feeling more confident as you execute it more and more. It's quite remarkable how you can change your brain and your neuroplasticity with application. So
I was going to say when I played at Petanque events for 1 year, we were doing all these exercises, and I don't know whether it was Stone or Joe Sheffield said to me when we were lobbing, I didn't know you could lob. I was like, what do you mean? well, I've never seen you do it. I said, well, sometimes you just play the terrain. So I do the easiest thing on whatever that particular terrain is. It doesn't mean I can't do it. And that's the same for everybody. I guess, look at Becky. She's fantastic. She's got her own way of playing it, and she can play on any terrain because it works for her. But
Yeah.
I tend to play the terrain, whichever shot it requires. But it doesn't mean I can't do it. So that was interesting.
It's interesting because in her conversation with myself, her interview, she said she really struggled with her lob. And so she put the same requisite amount of time to develop that. And now it's her preferred shot.
Mm, exactly. That's what I mean. Determination, lots of practice. You'll get there in the end.
So what does practice look like? Because for a lot of people, it's just throw a few ball up, smack a few, point a few. I totally disagree with that. That's not deliberate practice. What's your version of good practice?
I think it depends what the competition is that's coming up. If it's singles, doubles, triples, depending on what you need to work on and what your position is in the team. So if it's more of a pointing role, then I would practice different types of shot. I like to promote ball, and that wasn't easy. So I've been practicing that quite a lot, promoting the front ball and going. So yeah, literally the art of just throwing a lot of ball to start with as a warm up. I like to go to the terrain, to the venue quite early, and especially if there are different types of terrain, and play on each of the pieces. So it's not a surprise when you're actually in the competition and thinking, I wish I'd have practiced on here. So kind of getting used to all of the different types of terrain. But yeah, just throwing ball, promoting ball, shooting a lot of ball, kind of on your own, really, because you can throw more ball. If you're, oh, let's just have a friendly doubles or triples. No, because you can't throw that amount of ball because there's lots of waiting around and standing around. So yeah, it's just shot focused. Obviously, there's a competition coming up once a week, couple of times a week, getting closer every night, depending on what it is. So just focus and practice, because obviously all the preparation should be done before you get to the competition. Don't you agree?
100%. It's when I used to train people in running and triathlons and Ironmans and things, it was the 6 months before is the training. The day of the race is the celebration. And if you're doing the same in pétanque, the training in the week leads to the celebration on the Sunday when it should all come together.
It
And
should.
leads me on to another thing, mental preparation, because that is an often neglected part of the game. I have a series at the moment talking about the mental side of the game, where each week I deliver my versions, my tools, my tips. Some are a bit mad, but I use them. What tips and tricks and strategies have you got to hone the mental game?
I tend to watch a lot of YouTube videos, and sometimes it's the women I'm watching, sometimes it's the men abroad. Just looking to see if I can, I don't know, whether I can be inspired by their game, or just kind of, I don't know how to describe it really. But you've got to get into pétanque mode. You've got to leave work mode and then prepare yourself, the day before, a couple of days before, into work mode. So if you can watch videos, or, just think about some games you've before, or if you're not happy with your practice, concentrate on one thing in particular, and then just get your mind in the game before you get there, basically. Just try and switch off. And that's what pétanque's really good at. Doesn't matter what sort of day you've had at work, school, whatever, you can point some ball, throw some ball, and forget about everything. So it's great for that.
It can, in some ways, affect you if you've had a stressful week or personal issues or financial issues. I have seen it take people's game down. And the mindfulness aspects and being in the moment, as you mentioned, is really important in a game, because you can't carry those burdens. You need to say, okay, box them up, stick them over here, leave them. We're here to play ball.
Yeah, And sometimes people don't realise why yesterday they were really good and, they pointed every ball, they hit every ball, yet today they can't hit anything and they can't point in for toffee and they don't know why. But obviously it's a mental game. So it is why there's something there that's niggling that they're not quite free to play. Done it myself. But sometimes as well, you go to a competition and you just get that feeling from the start that everything's going to go your way. The draw is going to go your way. Perhaps the better team's going to be in the other half of the draw. And it's just a snowball effect of how it goes game after game. We're doing well here. And it's just a confidence builder. And yeah, I've always thought of pétanque as a feeling that you get. You've got to be at one with the terrain. If you like Worthing car park is so difficult to play on, but don't let it get the better of you. Make it become your friend, not your enemy, because otherwise you'll get kicks here, there, and everywhere. Whereas if you embrace how it is and accept it for what it is, then it'll be easier. So that's the thing that people probably just take for granted. Oh, this is too difficult. It might be too difficult with the way they play. Why don't they adapt the way they play?
Plus, if it's difficult for you, it's difficult for the opposition.
Of course it is.
Then it just comes down to who's got the better mental resilience to carry through those bad kicks. And
Exactly.
bad kicks and luck and all of the other things in the great big book of excuses, they often come into play and you have to deal with them. So talking of that, hindsight, I think, is often the best vision for anyone. You look back and, oh, I wish I'd have done that. Has there any been a situation where you have looked back and thought, damn, I wish I'd done this?
Oh, probably lots of times. Can't think of an example off the top of my head, but sometimes it's because I think sometimes as you see teams that leave it to the one player rather than coming together as a team. So you'll never see that happen in France. They go to the circle together, they walk back together. A lot of people will say in England, well, it's up to you, you've got the ball. No, I'm sorry, we're a team. So, I can see occasions where that might have happened before. You weren't 100% confident or your team weren't. But you have to be before you step into the circle. So, yeah, there's a lot of that, I think, that goes on with hindsight. But if everyone's agreed on how to play that ball, then it doesn't matter which player in the team is playing it, as long as you're agreed and behind it. Not, oh, you should have done it that way, but you just told me that to leave it and get on with it,
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
So teamwork is obviously you've had this amazing synergy with Nikki and with your mum and dad. And have you it's going to be an interesting one for you, I think. Have you ever had that synergy with players who are not part of your family?
Yes, I've played with so many different people over the years, and sometimes it just clicks. You probably know that. Perhaps with the most unlikely people, people that you've never met before, or perhaps met once or twice. But sometimes you just have that thing where you have this understanding. One player has come to mind, and she's Dutch, Karen de Jong. She's married to Geert Peers. She used to organise Mosaic. Anyway, she came to England a few years ago, and I played with her in the doubles at Crystal Palace. Sorry, triples, because we played with Dave Freeman, and then the doubles the next day at Gravesend. Who was the letdown at Crystal Palace? Dave Freeman, because he was tasked with being the photographer, so he was too interested in taking photos without. I know, so that was kind of a little bit. Anyway, but then the next day I played with her in the doubles, and it was absolutely fantastic. I started off shooting and hit the first three ball, and we did really well. If it wasn't working for her, she'd say, right, I'm not sure I'm comfortable pointing on this terrain. Could you start pointing the first couple of ends? Of course. And she shoots as well. So it just worked really well. And I didn't really know her that well. So sometimes things happen. The same thing happened with Claire Corliss. A couple of years ago, we played together for the first time. We've been saying it for 14, 15 years, let's play a competition, and we did. And it was the ladies' doubles at Whitnash. We won the whole thing. Never played together before. It just clicked. It's just that spoken kind of experience and knowledge, I think.
So what do you value in a teammate? Because I've had different things from others: honesty, cohesion, agreement, tranquility, will to win. What's most important for you?
Respect, mutual respect. Don't like people with egos. Everyone's equal, and everyone's capable. So respect, trust, belief, self-belief. So because it's such a mental game, if somebody doesn't believe in you, that's such an awful thing. Why would you be there in their team? You have to believe and you have to have the respect for each other. So I think that's just the most important thing. Respect. I mean, Sammy Thatcher, Sammy Ogles, she's been a really good partner of mine. So, not that we see each other very often, but when we came together, we always did really well. And then Kaylee, of course, in the triples. So it was just one of those things that just worked.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's great.
Brilliant. And you've talked about lots of different things, from literally respect and determination and will to win. And are there other things, life lessons that this amazing game has taught you?
I would say even the shyest person in the world can be good at something if you put your mind to it and you've got the right guidance and support and advice. You've got determination, and obviously it's a knock-on effect. When you start doing well, then you're going to succeed and excel. So I'm basically talking about myself, because such a shy person, honestly, when I was younger. Yeah, I think, Doug Curtis, he called me the silent assassin.
Yeah. Dougie was great.
Just let your ball do the talking. That's my motto.
Yeah. He was also very unassuming and very amiable to everyone he came into contact with, and that was a delight to play with and against Doug. So it was good.
Oh, great.
So, favorite brand of ball, make and model, and why?
My first set were JB ball.
Same with me.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to go to the JB ball factory, and had a new set there. Obviously, was friends with Peter Newens, who used to sell them.
Mm.
Then, obviously, when we played in the World Championships and we got to the semi-final, one of the prizes was a set of ATX ball, which at the time were £100 a set. Now they're 3 times that. So they were really good. And then since then, I've just used MS 2110 carbon, and then usually 680, but 75 because I've got quite long fingers. But in recent times, I'm borrowing Nikki's MS Elite 73 680. So they seem to be working for me at the moment. So.
Do you know, it doesn't matter the size or the shape or the make or the model. We all have to let go of them.
Exactly. Whatever feels comfortable.
Exactly that. So, secret tip, just between you and me. You're helping me now. Well,
Still close.
yeah, whisper in my ear.
Okay, so let's say you're playing a game, it's not going your way, and there's momentum building on the other team. They're kind of playing quickly and getting a little bit cocky. Right, determination to win and end. Right, and as soon as you get the cosh, take your time. Take your time before you throw it in the circle. Think about where you're going to throw it, and then possibly go diagonally. Don't go up and down. Change, if they've been playing short, go long. Play it by the string. Think about if they've got left-handed players in their team, what's going to be awkward for them, what's going to be better for you. So that's such a big thing that I think, because you only get one chance now. We used to get 3 goes, didn't we, back in the day?
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say. Take your time and think about that. It's really important where to throw the cosh.
You also used to have an awful lot more time back in the day.
Big,
A lot
big,
less time now.
yeah,
I remember
yeah.
your dad used to string some games out. If teams were getting ahead, it'd be like, "Here's Barry with the AVS."
But I
And it
think
was
people think it's a race. It's like, you've got a minute. You have
yeah,
got a minute, you know?
yeah. It's great. So I mentioned Dream Team, and you said Fazino and Shupei. UK Dream Team, male, female, alive or dead. Who would you choose?
Okay. Like I said, I've probably played with most of the female players in the UK or in England anyway. So male would be Steve Dakin and Jason White and Kai Sheffield. But if it was an international women's team, I really admire Charlotte Darrod, Cindy Perot, and Sarah Diaz from Spain.
Mm,
So I just think if it was me in that team, we've got two right-handers, two left-handers, the kind of all-rounders. They've got a really good temperament, kind of somebody that's a bit like me, I'd say, because then you've got the camaraderie and hopefully good things will happen.
I think it's funny because you mentioned Cindy, and Cindy, well, she has this situation where she's an incredible player, a brilliant shooter. There's something about her face that doesn't fit, and I think you've experienced that. I've experienced that in the past, and it's painful. And
I don't know whether part of it is because she's chosen not to be in the French national team or whether she hasn't been chosen. Of course, her face doesn't fit. I'm not sure. But it doesn't mean that she's not a great player because she
no,
is.
she's a brilliant
Um, yeah. And also, more reason for her to prove herself in other competitions, which is what she's done this year,
player.
winning the
Exactly.
places. So, yeah.
No doubt she subscribes to this channel.
I'm sure. Well, she will after this because we name checked her.
That's a very good point. It gets put onto to YouTube. Listen, Claire, it's been an absolute delight catching up with you. Every time I see you on the pitch, or it's when we've run into each other in the middle of nowhere, and you're just like, yeah, and it's like it's always great to and I'd love to play again, together or against you. I'm very much looking forward to it, and I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have today. And look, if we get the chance to do it again, I'd love to do
Mm,
it again. Talk a bit
yeah,
more.
I would too. Thanks
Okay.
ever so much. All right,
See
then.
you on
Take
the pitch
care.
someday.
Will do. Bye, Kev.
Bye.